Welcome to Global Vision. I'm super happy here because we have Dari DeSousa. What a cool name, DD, with us.
Thank you.
And we're going to speak about human resources and hospitality. But before that, I would like, first of all, welcome you, but also tell us a little bit about yourself.
Why, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to have a great conversation today. So, as you said, my name is Dari, and I have been in human resources and hospitality both for about 30 years now. My career started a long time ago, right out of high school. So, I was actually still in high school. And I started working for some different restaurants and, trying that kind of food and beverage, different kind of food and beverage jobs. And I had a friend who worked at a Marriott, and she goes, "Hey, we need somebody in our restaurant." So that is how my career started. I think I was 18. And I
Wow.
just kind of started working at a hotel, just thinking it was a job. And after a couple of years in hotels, I was like, this is maybe a career. Maybe I could do this for real, not just, a little temporary job. And that's how it kind of all got started. So for me, so I spent a few years in food and beverage working because that's, a fun job that people like to do. You get tips and that's a lot of fun. And then I got into human resources and I loved it. I loved it. And I knew that no matter what I did or what company I worked for, I was going to be doing some aspect of human resources. And I have done that ever since. So I really, really, I just enjoy it. So for me, with my career, I have worked with different companies, all of them hospitality, Starwood, Interstate Hotels, Marriott Hotels, RIR Hospitality. But last year, in the middle of the pandemic, I decided I needed to launch my own business. So I went out and opened my own consulting company. So it's DeSousa Professional Human Resources Group. So I've been doing my own business since then, and it's coming along really well.
And let me ask you a question. When we talk about human resources with your current company, it's only for the hospitality business, or you have another range of industries too?
That's a really good question. Being so experienced in hospitality and all of my networking up to just the past couple of years really were just hospitality organizations. But in the last couple of years, I really realized the need to diversify my networking and branch out into life sciences and hospitals and different manufacturing and different companies. So I really made efforts to engage with different HR people in different industries. So while I'm very good at hospitality, my HR services I can apply to any business. Or
Wonderful. And how do you enhance the employee engagement? Because that is one thing that I think is essential for every business.
it's so interesting. The last position I had with Marriott was very engagement focused. Like that was, I would say, 80% of what I did. So what I think is important, if managers would just step back a little bit, and I know we all have deadlines to meet and budgets that you have to meet and certain sales or productivity. I get all that, but stepping back from that and really making connections and real connections, not fake connections, but real connections with your team, and getting to know them and know what drives them and what motivates them, that is going to make a stronger team. And then all those other things you want of budget and sales and, that will come in line. So for me, employee engagement is really just how connected is your team to the job they're doing under your leadership at the company they're doing. If they are having a good experience, it's going to be good. They're going to enjoy it. They're going to work harder. They're going to stay with you a long time. And if they don't, there's just so many companies out there. There's other places that they're going to go choose to work. So, spending that extra time with the engagement and care and concern and taking care of the whole employee, then you'll do less time recruiting because your team won't be leaving you. So for me, I think it's just kind of my HR philosophy of just how do you have real conversations with people? And sometimes the real conversation is praise, like somebody's done a good job. It's so easy to forget to give that, hey, great job today, or the way you spoke with that client, or the way you closed that business. That was fantastic. Thank you. It takes a second. It takes a second, a minute. It takes a minute to give that kind of recognition. But also meaningful connection. Like if you see somebody doing something, maybe it's not so good. You don't want them doing that. If you just ignore it and you look the other way and you're like, oh, I'm sure they'll figure it out, well, the person's going to keep doing it. And then other people are going to do it. And then pretty soon your whole team's doing this bad behavior. You're like, why are they doing that? So also giving meaningful counseling when you can really turn behavior and correct it. To me, that both those things, the praise and the correction all together in a thoughtful way, not a mean way. You're not like, talking down to people, but just in a real way. I think that makes a better relationship between leaders and their teams, and it just makes us a more solid team. So I believe in really making strong efforts to engage. The other thing I would say, you can't just do it as a checkbox, like, oh, once a year, check. I gave my team a free lunch today. They're engaged now. That's not it. It's doing little things, just, not on a schedule, just, throughout the week or throughout the month, and just doing continuous little things. That's real engagement.
And what's leadership development?
So leadership development, that's another thing I'm very passionate about. Sometimes in business, if you have somebody who's been in the job a while and you have a supervisor job open, we're like, here's a new name tag. You're a supervisor now. But do they know how to supervise others? Do they know how to lead others? Or were they just good at the job they did? So for me, developing leaders, teaching them strategic thinking, teaching them how to talk to others. Just because you're really good at, sales, it doesn't mean you know how to teach other people how to be good at sales and how to grow your team. So I think investing in leadership development, teaching people how to be leaders and how to manage performance and how to encourage and how to motivate a team, that is well worth it, because they're going to be stronger leaders. And again, that cascades all the way down through the organization. So the whole team is going to be stronger. And again, whatever your big overarching company objectives are, they're going to be met because you've got every single, team member and every single leader leading towards that, and done in a healthy, positive way.
And what you will say that will be the advantages of having the HR support customized for every corporation?
Yeah. So I think the thing about human resources is sometimes people think of it like a cookie cutter. And like, oh, here's HR. It's just this little box, and we just have to keep doing that, with every company. And it's just not. Every single company has its own energy, its own, its own culture, its own vibe, its own objectives. Different companies are trying to, do different things. One might be sales, one might be manufacturing, trying to, have efficient, safe manufacturing. One might be sales and marketing. One might be a hotel. You're trying to, fill your hotel with, banquets and with guests in room. So if you have the same cookie cutter approach, it's probably, there'll be some good things in there, but it's really not going to meet everyone's needs. Instead, if you have HR and you really give them the support and freedom and flexibility to create tailored products, tailor HR services to that team. Maybe this organization, you're really big on corporate social responsibility, and you want your team on a regular basis to be doing community activities and beach cleanup or, donations to Toys for Tots or something. Well, then that would be, a huge activity of the HR at that company. Maybe a different company, safety driven, and maybe you have dangerous tools or mechanics. And so then safety and the safety culture would be what that person would be focused on. So you really need to have somebody who has good knowledge of basic, rules and state laws, city laws, federal laws, but then who really can identify what that team needs and help them all get there. So that would be the customized approach. And I think it's just a stronger approach.
And what word you like best? Human resources or talent?
Oh, so that's a very difficult question.
I know.
So for me, it starts with talent. If you have a very strong recruiting team or just, recruiting process where you can really get out there, you can source amazing people that'll be good fits for your organization, and then you onboard them and teach them and train them and grow them, then I think the HR part is actually easier. So if you just kind of hire whoever walks in off the street, it might not be a good fit and it might not be strong for your organization. So then HR spends a lot of time correcting and maybe counseling or maybe even disciplining, So I think if you don't focus on talent, it makes the rest much harder. So I think talent, you got to start with talent.
And what do you think that the employees want when they're looking for a company to work?
Yeah, so this I think changes all the time. Right now, what I would say is, especially with the last year with COVID, how many employees were sent home to work from home? How many employees had kids at home and didn't have daycare or didn't have anyone to watch their kids and were trying to homeschool their kids? Or how many people just, got let go of a job? So some people might be looking for flexible hours to meet their, to work with, odd school schedules that are happening. Some people might want a very established company that is maybe more diverse in how they earn money, so they might be less likely to let people go. So they might just want stability and job security. So I think that kind of a need will change based on what's happening and the type of person you're recruiting and hiring, and the roles that you're looking to fill. I think a truth for all jobs, just everywhere, doesn't matter the business, doesn't matter the country. I think there's some basics, and I think being respectful. Nobody wants to come to work and feel like, they're spoken down to, or, ignored, or their voice doesn't matter. So really being involved, knowing that I am contributing to this business and this is how I'm contributing and I have a voice in this business. So that's exciting. Respect. And then I think some of the basics, I call them basics, is getting people their pay on time, making sure it's correct and getting them their pay on time. It seems like a simple thing, and sometimes you'd be surprised that, employees that always have their paychecks wrong, that's frustrating. Nobody wants that. People just want the money that they've earned, the respect, the involvement. And I think that those are kind of the core things. And then from there, what makes sense to your industry in your market? What kind of benefits are other companies offering? So you have to make sure that you know what's happening, because you have to be able to offer the same benefit. If you're the only one that doesn't offer, healthcare, or you're the only one that doesn't offer, a bonus plan, and everyone else is around you, then when they're examining companies to work for, you're going to be last on the list. So you really need to make sure that your offerings are on par with everyone else. And then what else do your employees need? I think one of the best ways to find out what your employees need, ask them. And not just like a suggestion box on the wall. No. Have little focus group meetings, invite people for a coffee chat and say, hey, we're going to just have a casual luncheon, or I'm going to have donuts and coffee. Come by and I want to pick your brains. So asking employees what they want, I think that's the best way to find out what they want.
That's wonderful insights, actually. It's really great and sometimes overlooked, but it's so important.
So awesome.
And just to sum up, what you will say that is the leadership essentials now in the 21st century, with all of the changes that we're going through, like society, what will be that essentials?
So I think leadership has really been struggling this past year. And I'm going to talk about my industry first, which is my experience industry, which is hospitality. So when COVID hit, obviously hospitality everywhere, took a hit because nobody was traveling and there was lockdowns and, people were sick. And I mean, it was bad. It was very, very bad. So some hotels had closed their doors. They just closed, and some are starting to reopen again. Others went down to just skeleton staffing, like maybe there was 3 or 4 people. That's it. And so leaders in that situation, it was kind of like, swimming to, keep your head barely above water and just survive. And it was just survival. And I saw that in a lot of places. So just trying to survive. Now that we're starting to swing out of that, something that the people that I'm working with and my clients that I support, I tell them, hey, we've got to get out of survival mode. Now it's got to be one, you've got to thank your team that was with you and survived all the craziness of this past year. You got to say, hey, thank you for just rolling up your sleeves and being in the craziness with us for the past year. So give them that recognition. And then they need to feel like we're swinging towards a new normal that's back to business and getting some more staffing hired and, supporting and getting back to normal hours, normal work hours. I think that some people are nervous that them having to do one person working, 80 hours a week and doing 5 jobs, that's the new normal, and it can't be. if we treat that like the new normal and just overworking people, that they're just going to burn out. They're going to be unhappy. And they're going to leave. They're going to leave you. So how do we now start swinging back to healthier work balances? Whether that's staffing levels or the expectation of how many hours you work. Some employees, depending on your industry, they're going to want to continue to get to work from home sometimes. And I think a lot of people have shown that they can do it. Yeah. And companies are like, oh, Zoom does work for meetings. Maybe we could do more of those. So really looking at how you're doing, just don't go back to what you were doing in 2019. That's just, it's not going to work. So how do we pivot and reinvent? How do we do it better? And involving your team on how to do it better, having more flexibility and really recognizing that people have things still happening at home, whether maybe they've lost somebody who died from COVID, maybe their kids aren't back to school full time, or maybe the stress of this past year has really affected them. So really working and addressing them as a whole employee, not just the worker part, right? I mean, we have to do that, of course, but what about the human part and making sure that we as a company aren't ignoring that? I think if leaders, if you ignore it, you're making a big mistake and you're not going to be connected to the team. They're not going to appreciate you and they're certainly not going to respect you. So I think that that is essential. You can't ignore that part.
Well, Dari, I think it's so inspiring to just listen to you because basically you're trying to bring humanity in HR. And I think this is the new way of doing business, of working in corporations, is to bring more humanity. So I thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. In HR, I think sometimes people think it's just the tasks, you know, the paper to fill out, the form, the lawsuit, the boxes to check. And I get that. There's paperwork and, you know, handbooks and rules. I get that. That is a part of our, you know, the HR discipline. But if you aren't also, as an HR leader, if you aren't also, you know, just driving that culture to goodness and good things and being thoughtful, then I don't think you're doing your job as an HR person. I think you should be absolutely the champion of having an amazing culture. That you, as an HR person, if you don't have your finger on the pulse of your team, like you're not interacting and going to department meetings and just walking the plant or walking the floor, you know, maybe everyone is socially distanced. So scheduling Zoom calls with people who are working remotely just to check in, then you can't know what's going on with your team. So keeping your finger on the pulse and then making sure any information you find that senior leaders know it. And you're like, hey, here's what I'm seeing and here's what I recommend. Here's some things we can do to make positive changes or to improve communication or, you know, whatever it is that you're finding. So I think HR has to drive that. You can't just sit back and be the, you know, the department of paperwork. That's just not helping anyone.
Love it. Let's move past on that thing.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today with us. I think that as me, the audience also will appreciate all your insights and your views, which I believe that are very good for the current times, and you give us some enlightenment. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to chat with you today, and I appreciate your time. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll see you soon again. Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao.